What's going on, boys? Diving deeper, day five. So today was Valero energy for 100%, and then I did have an Apple short for about 30% here, but I didn't take profit on that, and that went back to break even with a $0 realized profit. Yeah, I know it doesn't sound great, but it doesn't sound horrible. I want to talk about Apple real quick and just talk about how this has been a potential short focus of mine. Obviously, something that I talked about in one of these videos early on. I think it was day three or day two, we talked about how, or no, I'm sorry, this was the weekly scan. We talked about how potentially on Apple, what would I'd be looking for would be some sort of, we had seller dominance within the chart right here, just telling by the spread, telling by the obviously the relief in the inside bar on lower volume, and then followed by that we had a swipe of these relative equal highs that led us to a sell, and then another three inside bars. Now this third inside bar was actually end of month lows whenever the market saw just a very extensive rally. If you want to take a look over here, that's exactly what kind of caused this inside bar to look a little bit more bullish. So it wasn't something that I was looking to short necessarily on Monday because you always want to short into some sort of candle that looks like it has a little bit of momentum from the uh, side you're looking to trade from, right? So we never we never really got the swipe of this high, the failure, and then the break base retest for the lower high, and then the continuation down. What we more or less saw was a quick, immediate expansion right off the open, and then the volume started to dry up. We started to fail this little like flag breakout that led us to into a lower high. I shorted over here the following day for yesterday actually for 60%, and then today I opened up some puts on the whenever I noticed that the previous day high actually swiped here, and then it led us into some sort of sell looking spread, I should say. And then we obviously got a little wick for a retest here on a ever so slight 1 minute lower high. And then I took it from there. As soon as I caught leeway on the trade, I actually went break even stop. So I caught the retest and then I risked the opening print. What the trade criteria looked like live was something that looked like a short position, like probably right around here. And then I had a stop like probably of 30 something cents. And then I was looking for this low and it never got there, right? So that's a dollar and 51 cents of target with a 30-40 cent stop. That's a minimum of a 4R trade. I did go 30% green on the support here, and I could have scaled here. I just didn't because I thought it would bleed a little bit more, and it never did. So unfortunately, what happened was we put in just a very slight higher low from yesterday's afternoon session support. I never got the true follow through, and then obviously I scaled there, or I didn't scale there. I managed my risk there, and then we never really got. Uh, I went back break even like up here whenever we got this relief. And then it looked like a lower high, but I didn't want to trade it because obviously re-entering a position where I was in previous profit on the position and then re-adding the exposure on something that could potentially look like a reversal is just not something that I necessarily want to do. I did talk about on Twitter how we wanted to keep an eye on the end phase energy tape. A simple add-on support, guys. I only took a couple contracts here, and then I took them on like a higher low right over here on these two little higher lows, this heavy volume higher low hammer looking candle. And what this ultimately was kind of just looking like an accumulated look where lower low, lower low, lower low, and then higher low. So I took the execution right over here, and then I went up really nicely on some bi-weeklies over here. But then it went back near break even. My execution was either this candle or this candle. I can't really remember. I think I might have waited for the confirmation over here and then risked the opening print. That might have been what my criteria kind of looked like, or this gap. I know I was looking at this gap as well. I was kind of looking at the confluence of all those entries live, and it's just a simple support. But I didn't love the trade at first, so I didn't add a lot of exposure to it. I went really nicely green up here. I wasn't even really paying attention over here. And then before you know it, I went back in to look at my position, and I went back like I was like slightly green over here, then I just cut. So that was really just a wash. Now we're gonna go to the main trade that was a planned trade and a trade of focus of mine for a very long time. Not a very long time, but for the past like 2, 3, 4 days. Let's look at the weekly perspective first of all. This is a really nice increased volume move up, really healthy spread. There's not a lot of a sell wick within this candle over here. It's really gappy price action. We did get some March OPEX volume that was kind of leading us into this day, which made up for a lot of the volume. But it was just a really nice trend with no true established consolidations or retests. The trend didn't look like anything super, super healthy, so I did expect a pullback. And a long time ago, I was saying, oh my gosh, some sort of pullback into this range would be really, really, really nice, especially this wick or down into here. So my zone was like 146.40 into like 152. Now that's a very wide zone, and that's a hard zone to really execute off of. But what happened here was we got a preliminary buyer off of this little bull gap. So whenever you're looking at this little bull gap, there was a preliminary buyer there. They pushed this thing up on increased volume, really nice strong buyer volume there, followed by a decreased volume sell coming from the upper ranges, and then we obviously got the energy sector getting hit pretty hard after that, right? So after that, we found a new low, and then from there, we found an increased volume buyer again and a new lower low in this whole entire like flag channel look, all into a retest of this weekly level. So whenever we go into like the 15 or something, you're going to notice how there was a really strong tape. I talked about this in yesterday's diving deeper, really strong tape on Friday, and then what there really was just not enough volume to push this thing higher, and I tried to catch some sort of higher low over here yesterday. I failed on that, and then I did buy some contracts to mitigate my loss back to break even into close because I did figure a higher low is coming off of this spot, considering that this low is a very pivotal low from both a bull gap fill as well as a retest of this weekly level. So yeah, I knew that this was going to be a valid higher low spot. We opened the next following day right off the weekly level, also yesterday's low. We swiped that low. If you go into the 5, you're going to be able to see how this was really low volume off the open, and then we started to get that momentum shift. I added within this candle and on this candle closure and sweep of the previous day low. What I was likely risking was going to be something down into like 151 ish would be my worst possible risk, right? So whenever you're looking at this from the worst possible standpoint, it would be an execution from here. I'm sorry, that's not a short position, it's so long. And then obviously some sort of stop of like $2. And then what my target ultimately was kind of just like this resistance range up here. So that's a minimum at worst possible case scenario of a 2 to 1. Obviously, I minimized that with going green, catching some leeway in the contract. And then whenever I started to see the pivot starting to establish off this spot, I added a little bit more into those contracts. And I also had a position yesterday. So I was adding from the position yesterday, and then I added on a little bit of a dip over here today. I got my average probably like on the opening print of this day because I had some ads over here and then I had some ads over here and here. Um, and then, yeah, I kind of just took profit over here at like 60%, and then we took the full advantage of profit up here. And once you have the contracts at a point where it's like, oh my gosh, okay, we're looking to pivot now above 154 and head for this resistance. What can I do about this trade now? Well, a couple things I could do is obviously we based here all day, so this was a really nice opportunity to take profit. But whenever your ads and risk are down here, and then your target and then your base is all the way up here, it's like a guaranteed 5R trade, right? Because you have so much opportunity to scale within here. We have a little bit of time with next week expiry. And then I did add some weeklies to this, but the weeklies weren't anything that I was like too proud of just because I didn't necessarily trust it so much. I am still, so that was a really nice trade. And then I realized like half that position at like 60%. I wasn't expecting a ton out of the name just because XL Lee was in a spot where, okay, we gapped down and it saw actually a lot of weakness right off the open. So I knew Valero was going to be strong like for the day because whenever you're finding a candle like this, and you're finding a break in base in a push on increasing on an increased like really nice spread candle, and then there was really no seller within the tape, then it's like, okay, yeah, this makes a lot of sense in terms of like a relatively strong name. And then my plan was also to look for juice on top of that. So this was the bottom of the bull gap fill. If you come over here, this is a bull gap fill that's never been filled. Whenever you're looking at the $89 spot, you could say, okay, this is where the sector relief would probably come from. given the fact that we're also in this flag looking channel. Whenever you pull your fibs from the current low to the current high, it also lines up directly with equilibrium, 0.50 fib, 88.98. So the $89 cycle was a very big level for me. It was ever so slightly kind of holding on the 15, and then the hourly looked pretty solid. We got an hourly hammer on decent volume, followed by two lower volume inside candles, right? So I figured this would close back towards the upper range of the opening print from today, and that's exactly what happened. And then this gave us the relief starting from 950. Go over to Valero. 950 was right over here, right as we were claiming that 154 spot. So it was a nice little confluence of the sector itself, as well as the relatively strong name within the sector. Really nice trade. Not much to it, and that's kind of just how my trading day went. If you guys do have any questions, very simple trading. Like I said, just a very simple retest, higher low, swipe at the previous day low, and then, like I said, just looking for a higher low off of a very pivotal swing low, which is here, which is also the bull gap fill. So this is why that swing low is very pivotal. Also because we are above that weekly level. Okay, so that was my risk, 152 basically. This risk down here would have been stupid. Um, and then I could have always had some opportunity to resize into that trade. So I kind of like added here, was risking this wick after we got up to about here. And then I was targeting, like I said, just upper ranges of like this move. So I'd give it at least like a 5R trade. Really nice trade. Like I said, 100% max risk, probably like 15, 20%, maybe 20% given the bad spreads on the contracts. But yeah, not really much more than those two names. I also did have a remainder of my Nike position, and I still do. Those bi-weeklies that I added from last week on this day and this day, they're going really, really nicely. They're still up pretty well. I would be looking for some sort of boom, 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 and boom, right? So what I'm looking for is the external near 96. And if we can get that, that would be absolutely amazing. If we can't, not a big deal. You could look at this from like a progression standpoint of like, here's the little gap, fill, and then like this was a bigger gap that led us to a new like really aggressive sell. And what we did was we put in a little bit day Friday off that spot. So whenever we go into the hourly, you can take a look at this and go, okay, there's a really important higher low, which is basically a retest of like this previous resistance turning a support now, and then I'd be looking for higher low and then a higher low and then the move. Okay, so that's kind of just how I was seeing this one. I did experience a little bit of drawdown on the runners, but yet again, sometimes you have to deal with these things, guys, to be able to catch the wider perspective of the target and the trade plan. And that's what really maximizes your risk to reward, and removing the emotion out of making decisions like this is very key. So yeah, I mean, Valero basically made my day. I could have made a little bit more with the Apple short. This has been a short focus of mine. Not necessarily a short focus in support, but more and less just looking for sweeps, looking for failures, looking for resistances, looking for any sort of like buy side mitigation where you get a really strong sell and then maybe it goes something like this, boom, and then ever so slightly the weakest pullback and then maybe lower. I'll wait for that day to come though, because that's all speculation as of now. So we'll wait and see. But that's diving deeper, day 5.